What's up everybody, my name's Big Cam and welcome back to another trailer breakdown and reaction. And today we will be breaking down the Dune Part 3 or Dune Messiah. And this Dune Part 3 trailer just dropped the other day and this new poster dropped too and it looks really sick and the names up top: Chalamet, Zendaya, Jason Mamoa, Florence, Pugh, Rebecca Ferguson, Charlotte Rampling, Anya Taylor-Joy, Robert Pattinson, Javier Bardem. Oh my god, this cast is ridiculous, and it's like been a really good cast for 3 movies now, but it seems like this movie's gonna be much more like Revenge of the Sith, where the first 2 movies Anakin's a good guy and he's falling in love with Padme, and in the second movie they're starting to fall in love more and he gets her pregnant in the 3rd movie, and then he turns into Darth motherfucking Vader and he's no longer Anakin Skywalker and he's killing younglings and he's doing some fucked up crazy shit, you know. So it almost seems like our boy Paul has cut his hair, and ever since the events of the Dune Part 2 and what happened at the end of Dune Part 2, it looks like Paul has been taking a turn for the worse, and this trailer gives us a better look and a better understanding of where his and Chani's headspace is at, especially, you know, they were a couple. The end of Dune Part 2 ended with him like making a promise to Florence Pugh's character to marry her, and Chani standing in the background like, what the fuck? I thought you loved me, boy. Like, I've been the one that's been teaching you how to be a Fremen, and now you want to take over the universe? What is happening here? We just wanted to free Arrakis at first, and now we're going for the whole empire? Well, alright. And the Dune Part 3 epic conclusion is still coming out on December 18th, filmed for IMAX on those IMAX screens. So this will be coming out at the exact same time as Avengers Doomsday still, and, you know, Dune has those IMAX screenings. So Avengers won't have any of those screenings until at least 2 or 3 weeks after this movie comes out. So, you know, maybe by 2027, Avengers Doomsday will be all taking over the IMAX theaters and whatnot. But I don't know, man. I still don't see how these movies end up coming out on the same day. Maybe they do just have that different audiences, you know, like there's Marvel fans and then there's Dune fans. I'm somebody that I'm a Marvel fan, but I'm also a Dune fan. But if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I am getting my tickets Thursday. First showing will be for Dune, and then after Dune I will go see Avengers Doomsday. But for me, my priority and my most anticipated film of 2026 is Dune Part 3. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump on into this trailer and start picking out what we notice.
I trusted you! You promised me that you would never take power in your name. You convinced me that this was your home. That I was your home.
What do you know about me?
Oh, the chills! The absolute chills from that. Like, oh god. So like we see, you know, Chani and Paul still has his long hair and he, you know, must just have like that we might pick up this movie right where the last movie left off, and you know, they're gonna be together still, but she's like, you know, yelling at him like, I trusted you. You said you would never take power in your name, you know, like, and then we cut to shots of just absolute, you know, destruction and like a straight war on this planet, and explosions and people are falling to the ground and blowing up and friggin' right on top of them, and Chani's looking at him like, friggin', you're friggin' such a pig, and he's just like looking at her, right? And then we cut to a shot of a burning forest and Paul's in some type of armor and he still has his hair, but you know, he's walking forward with like his Fremen troops behind him. And I believe, from what I've heard, this shot of him in this burning planet is the opening of the movie, and we're gonna, you know, see right after this is the first time the Fremen experience rain. So they're like, oh my god, water from the sky, where on Arrakis water itself is like a hot commodity, you know what I mean? Like, so them seeing water from the sky, they're gonna be like, what the fuck's happening? And it's like during this war and it's on this other planet. Like, man, I think this third movie is going to be insane. And it's going to be so different from the first two films. Like, it's going to be wild. But it looks like Paul is holding Chani's pregnant stomach. And then we see a shot of bald Paul that we've seen from the previous trailers of him climbing up to the top of that thing and like rallying his troops and, you know, all of his troops around him. And then we see a shot of it looks like Chani holding her blue like scarf, and it looks like there's two children next to her. So are those Paul and Chani's children? Because I think we are supposed to have a 13-year time jump or whatnot, and that's how we'll end up with bald Paul and like the crazy Paul that he's going to be in this movie. But Chani seems to, you know, let go of the scarf and see it fly away. And then Paul, bald Paul, goes to the desert in the dunes of Arrakis and picks up her scarf. And Chani's like, you convinced me that this was your home and that I was your home. And it ends with like that bald Paul picking up her scarf out of the sand and being like, what do you know about me? And it's like, oh God, what happened to the Paul I loved and knew and like that caring kid from the first Dune movie? Like, this bald Timothee Chalamet looks like he's fucking a demon incarnate, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, what's gonna happen in this movie? I'm so fascinated already, but it cuts to the Warner Brothers logo and on to the next portion of this trailer.
You've conquered the galaxy. You've destroyed thousands of worlds.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're way beyond redemption.
Ooh, from director Denis Villeneuve, we see Jason Momoa's character, who is Duncan Idaho's clone or something in this film. I'm not really sure. I guess we'll find out when we see him. But we see like a foggy planet with like these temples in the background. And it looks like this is like a really dark, muddy planet as we see like a hand in like some mud, as it's clearly a dead body like frozen in that mud. And it looks like some barefoot characters in a white dress as she's walking through, or I think this is a she, but maybe this is somebody else, but she seems to be walking through a bunch of X's with bodies strung up on them for whatever reason, like a mass burial of these people, like maybe a mass sacrifice or something. But, you know, it seems that Paul has taken over here and he's in some type of throne room and he's got Jason Momoa on a knee, and Jason Momoa's character says, you've killed thousands of worlds, and he goes, what's your thoughts on that? And he goes, I think you're beyond redemption, as we see shots of them like fighting each other and, you know, having this little duel, and there's like they're surrounded, but Paul's like, nah, I need to duel him myself. I need to know how good this Duncan Idaho clone is, you know, because Duncan was, you know, his trainer, his, you know, favorite friend, the best Arrakis soldier they had, you know what I mean? I was so devastated to see Duncan die in that first movie too, so the fact that he skipped the second movie and he's coming back for the third is crazy. Like, how? But yeah, so like Paul goes to stab at Jason Momoa's character and stabs next to his head. So for whatever reason, he's keeping him alive. And we see him like, I think you're beyond redemption. And Paul has him like chained up in this room, right? So what I'm wondering is how many years in the future is this? And like, you know, is Paul truly gone? Like, is Darth Vader taken over, you know, so to speak, and the Anakin Skywalker is never going to return? Or is it like kind of like a Darth Vader situation where it takes him 3 more movies and then in episode 6 he goes, no, my son, I must protect him, fuck the Emperor, and he throws the Emperor over the thing and he shows his son his own face before dying, you know what I mean? So like, is it going to be one of those type of things where, right, because even in the first part of that clip, Paul's saying to Chani, what do you know about me? But he's picking up her blue bandana. So, you know, does he want to keep a piece of her close to him? Or is it just like a little memento that he grabs? But it's like the Paul Atreides on the inside grabs that, but like this new Emperor Paul is just kind of like, I'm conquering everything, fuck the bitch, I see the clear path forward, right? Because at the end of the second movie, he had started to see visions in the future, and he was seeing it very clearly. Well, before, in the first movie, he was having visions, but they weren't exactly the way that they turned out. They were kind of close to what happened, but not necessarily what happened, right? Like, he was having visions of Jamis in that first movie being his mentor, but then it really came down to it. Jamis was the person he needed to defeat in combat to become a Fremen, right? So sure, he was his mentor and his trainer in a sense, but only in Paul's mind, and those visions were not necessarily correct, you know. And then Chani he saw her as like this love of his life, and at first she doesn't like him at all, and he kind of wins her over through being the chosen one or whatnot, you know. And he wins over Javier Bardem's character real quick, friggin' Stilgar, Lisa Nagalib, as it was written. Anybody that liked those first two movies, comment below, talk more Dune with me, because I love those films. But from director Denis Villeneuve, on to the next portion of this trailer.
Why are you here?
To deliver a peace proposal.
Peace is a good thing. Why should I refuse?
Because it's meant to destroy you.
We plan to strike.
Ooh, that last closing shot was just beautiful, with like Stilgar and the Fremen arriving onto a beach and seeing water like this for the first time, and like just Stilgar's eyes as he sees this and like picks up the sand on the shore. Oh, what a beautiful little shot at the end of that little piece there. But it seems that, you know, we see a ship flying past what has to be a new statue of Bald Paul, but it doesn't necessarily look like Timothée Chalamet, so maybe this is a ruler on another planet that we're seeing with this like big upside down triangle pyramid in the background. But then we cut to a shot of somebody sitting on a throne and like this urn getting carried in, and then we, you know, see Jason Momoa's character talking to Paul, and Jason Momoa's character is like, I was sent here with a peace proposal, and he's like, well, peace is good, why should I deny it? And he goes, because it's gonna kill you. And Paul like pulls out his daggers, and you're like, woohoo. But some other interesting shots, it seems that maybe that's Florence Pugh's character, and she's getting somebody to kneel to her, and all these other people are kneeling as well. So maybe this is the princess that she's like walking up to a ship and she's going somewhere. I wonder if then these ships that we see are enemy ships, or maybe this is like Princess Irulan, who Florence Pugh plays. Maybe she's flying in somewhere, and she's flying in during like a war zone, as it looks like shots are raining down from the sky, absolutely lighting up these facilities as somebody's like hiding underneath this rubble, and just absolutely crazy. And then we see shots of Robert Pattinson's character for the first time, and I believe his name is Skytal or something like that, and he's got no eyebrows, a ginormous forehead, this terrible blonde haircut, and he has that giant urn thing behind him. So I'm wondering if Jason Momoa's clone is in that little pod thing that's behind him, or is there a second clone, right? Like, is there a Duncan Idaho clone that's got sent to Paul, and then this is another clone of somebody else that's getting sent somewhere? Maybe a Fade Ratha clone? I did think that Austin Butler was unbelievable as Fade Ratha in the second Dune Part 2, and, you know, he got killed at the end of Dune Part 2, and I thought that was a missed opportunity for that character, right? Like, I thought he was so good, they should have kept him around for the third film. So, I don't know, maybe they cloned Duncan Idaho, but they also cloned Fade Ratha? Maybe. But on to the next portion of this trailer.
We plan to strike the core of Imperial power.
You intend to kill Paul?
Regime change.
Idiot. You've just signed our death warrants.
I found someone.
Ooh, this December. So it seems like Skytal, or whoever friggin' Robert Pattinson's character is meeting up with the mothers, or what were they called? The Reverend Mothers, I think, and they're all in those black outfits, and they meet up with Florence Pugh's character, who is the princess, who I think is betrothed to Paul, or maybe even married to Paul at this point, and, you know, she was a former, like, apprentice to the Reverend Mother or whatnot, so I think that might be the Reverend Mother in the background there, standing next to Skytel. But Florence Pugh's like, you plan to kill Paul? And he goes, regime change. Like, they plan on striking the imperial power, and she's like, you idiot, and, you know, like, you have doomed us all, because then we see shots of Anya Taylor-Joy, who is Paul's sister, and she is incredibly smart because she was talking like when she was a fetus in the womb, you know what I mean? So I'm fascinated to know more about her character. We only heard her voice in Dune Part 2, so she's actually going to be a character in Dune Part 3, and she's on some planet looking like she's walking over some type of structure and, you know, jumping through like this desert planet, like fog almost, and, you know, Florence Pugh is like, uh-oh, you doomed us all, we're gonna die. And Skytel, Robert Pattinson's character, says, I have found someone that can, like, lead them against Paul. And it cuts to a shot of Chani punching the sand, right? Like she's about to call a sandworm. So I'm sitting there like, wait a second, what? Like, Skytel is gonna get Chani to go against Paul in this film? Oh no, I didn't have that on my bingo card, that Chani is gonna be like defeating Paul maybe by the end of this movie. I don't know, but like, I'm trying to like put this together in my head, like, how does this movie end? But it just is looking more and more fascinating. But also, like, this is our second or possibly third, I think it's the second though, second Dune Part 3 trailer, and the movie's still 6 months out. Avengers Doomsday, where are we at? You know, like, we had 4 teaser trailers in December that played in front of Avatar Fire and Ash. It's now been 6 months from then. The CinemaCon audience got to see an Avengers Doomsday trailer. Where is it at? Why have we not seen it yet? You know, there's no reason I shouldn't be reacting to an Avengers Doomsday trailer right now. I understand that Spider-Man comes out in a couple weeks, but like, you know, Odyssey comes out next week. There's no reason that the Dune Part 2 trailer and Avengers Doomsday shouldn't be playing before the Odyssey and before Spider-Man Brand New Day. I think that's just a missed opportunity there from Marvel. But on to the next portion of this trailer. Ooh, this last like portion is just like a giant montage of themes, it seems like. But like that little portion there, like where Chani's talking to him, he's like, the future has a way of telling me things, but I can't see it clearly right now. And we see somebody opening their eyes, and it's like a black eye, which is just concerning, like, who is that? But it seems like Paul is talking to Chani, and Chani's like, how does it feel, Paul Atreides, to be human just like everybody else? And then we see a shot of Skytel in a ornithopter, but like a different model of it, not the same one that we saw in the first film. And he seems to like be crash landing in a snowstorm, and Robert Pattinson seems to be just like struggling to breathe. I don't know what's going on there, how they shot that, but that looked fascinating. But even at the beginning of that clip, like this December, and it looks like this like doorway is like almost like a keyhole that somebody's looking through and seeing Reverend Mothers in the background. And then we see that like black pod thing entering the side of a ship. So maybe that black pod is a massive ship that's like entering this thing to like teleport over to Arrakis or something. I'm not sure. Or maybe that's just a weird scale, so we can't tell how big that thing is. Like, is that a casket sized thing? Maybe. Or is that a ship-sized thing? I really can't tell at this moment. But, you know, we see a couple of shots of that thing entering whatever tomb that's entering. But then we see some shots from the last movie of, like, Paul and, like, Princess Urulan and Florence Pugh, you know, and as she stands, and then Paul's, like, turning, and he's going to turn and look at Chani in the background. But it cuts away to just Chani, maybe right after this ceremony, because that was right at the end of Dune Part 2. So maybe we pick up this movie right here at this scene, and Chani, we get to see her reaction to it, and she's devastated that her love just announced his marriage to somebody else. Like, what the fuck? And then we see a shot of her like standing out on the dunes alone as like Spice is like infiltrating, I think, Paul or somebody. But yeah, just fascinating stuff that we're seeing from this trailer so far. And it looks like Chani has a bunch of Fremen troops that she's leading as well, and maybe she's the one that caused that like sandstorm that collapsed on top of Robert Pattinson's character. But on to this final portion of the trailer, and let's close this bad boy out.
You have no fear, do you?
I fear dishonor.
You sound like an Atreides.
I've been told I was one.
Forgive me for all I've done.
Oh, my chills. Absolute chills. I have such goosebumps on my arms right now. Like, oh, ridiculous. Like him and friggin', or just starting out at the beginning of that clip, experience the epic conclusion, and Anya Taylor-Joy's character walks into this room, and it looks like maybe she's talking to a reverend mother, and she screams as she's covered in blood, but like whose blood is she covered in? As we then cut to a shot of Paul's ring, his Atreus house ring that he got from his father, Duke Leto Atreides. Friggin' Oscar Isaac. Loved that first movie so much. Even though that a lot didn't happen in that first movie, I love Dune Part 1 so much. Dune Part 2 might be one of the best films I've ever seen, and Dune Part 3 is looking like it's going to be even better, which is just insanity. But it seems that Paul asks Jason Momoa's, I don't even remember what his name is, Hytel or something like that? Hate or something? But either way, Duncan Idaho's clone, Jason Momoa, is like, he's like, what do you fear? And he goes, I fear dishonor. And he goes, you sound like an Atreides. He goes, I was told I was once one. As we see Duncan Idaho's clone dropping in as maybe a Fremen, or maybe for Paul, but working against Chani's troops or something. And he does the may thy knife chip and shatter symbol that, you know, all Fremen do with their crysknives. But his looks like just a normal steel. It doesn't look like a crysknife, which is a tooth from the Shai Hulud. Oh god, I love the lore of this so much. But we then see shots of Paul and Chani, probably from the first movie, or, you know, a flashback or whatnot. And, you know, them crying together, and maybe this is her telling him that she's so disappointed in him after his actions in the second movie, but maybe she's telling him that she's pregnant in this moment or something, because maybe they're having kids. But then we see Paul in just silhouettes of a giant flash explosion going off, and the shaking the camera as Paul with blue eyes is like looking into this light, and he closes his eyes as like the shockwave rings out through everybody, and he's like on his knees covering his eyes as like this wind is whipping through. So I think something happens to Paul there, and maybe something to his eyesight, but I guess we'll see in the film. We then see like two people parachuting, which is interesting, and then we see Paul maybe blinded, like I was just saying, from that blast of light, but he's on top of a sandworm somewhere, and it looks like maybe he's looking across at Jason Momoa's character, so maybe Jason Momoa is taking out Paul's guys here. And then we see a giant explosion in the desert as Chani looks like, oh no, as then Chani's standing there as the Shai Hulud looks like it's about to eat her, but it stops in its tracks, and Chani is like, has a hand petting the Shai Hulud, and then it cuts to a shot of Paul saying, I'm sorry for everything I've done, as it says Dune Part 3, and like the Eye of the Sun, Timothee Chalamet, Zendaya, Jason Momoa, Florence Pugh, Rebecca Ferguson, Isaac Day, BANKOLE, Charlotte Rampling, Anya Taylor-Joy, Robert Pattinson, and Javier fucking Bardem. Oh my god, from director Denis Villeneuve, December 18th, 2026, film for IMAX. My fucking goodness. And like, Denis wrote the screenplay for this with Brian K. Vaughan as well, and Denis directed this. And like, the only thing that Dune Part 3 doesn't have that the first two movies did is Greg Fraser as a cinematographer, right? And I don't even necessarily know cinematographers like that, but his work is so good that it made me learn his name. And the fact that he's not going to be on Dune Part 3 is devastating for me because some of the visuals in those first two movies were spectacular, but I think Denis wouldn't hire a cinematographer for this third movie that didn't know what he was doing. But also this third movie feels like it's going to be so different that maybe he's hired a different cinematographer intentionally to feel different from those first two movies. So I don't know, I think it's still going to be really interesting. I'm fascinated. This is about 6 months out and I cannot wait. Oh, I can't wait to see this on the big screen, right? And there's a rumor that the first 10 minutes of Dune Part 3 might be playing before the Odyssey. If so, I can't wait to see that next week. Oh God, I'm so excited for the Odyssey, Avengers Doomsday, Dune Part 3, there's Spider-Man Brand New Day. There's so many good films still to come the rest of this year. Oh man, I would love to hear your thoughts on this though. Drop those down in the comment section below, or you can message me on my other social medias. Links for those down in the description below. And if you guys want to talk more Dune Part 3 with me, or if you guys would like to support the channel further, the best way of doing that is dropping a like on this video, commenting down below, subscribing if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss future trailer breakdowns and reactions. And once again, I'm your host, Big Cam, and I'll see you gorgeous folks in the next video. Peace!